Hey folks, it's Ardwulf. Welcome. This is an unboxing video presented to you courtesy of Decision Games, who was kind enough to slip me a copy via an intermediary of Battles in the East. This is volume 1 of a new series that has its roots in some of the old SPI stuff, including games like the Army Group South Quad, which a lot of people remember fondly, as well as Panzergruppe Guderian, which is an all-time SPI classic. So Tony Burkett, who, if you don't recognize the name, is also the designer of the OCS game The Third Winter, and who has done a lot of research, for which I can personally vouch, because I've talked to Tony a fair amount, on the Eastern Front, and has identified a lot of smaller operational level situations that would make good individual games. And that has become then the Battles in the East series. These began to be released right around June or so of 2022. And there are 2 volumes out now, and there's another 2 volumes at least in the works with Decision. These have been very well received from what I can see so far. And as you might guess, I trust Tony Burkett, the designer, to do a good job on these games. And from Decision's standpoint, from a physical components perspective, they have done a dynamite job on these games. So both games, and we'll have a separate unboxing for the second one, both games are in what I would describe as a standard wargame 2-inch box. And as you're going to see, the components are quite nice. Now, I will also mention, I suppose, because it's bound to come up at some point in the process of talking about this, we meaning our Columbus East Front group that normally plays a lot of OCS, but who we also all know Tony, did participate in the playtests of some of this material. It was very early in the playtest process, however. So thick box. This is the boxes we expect nowadays. There is one 6-sided die in a baggie. I'm not sure why the baggie's there. And some baggies, which are, there's not a huge, you'll see the components in a second. The density here is reasonable. They're not skimpy games or games with 20 pieces per side, but they're reasonable as well. So once we get into the box, we're going to put the box over there, and we're going to find that each of the games contains a mounted map. Now, I am going to, and I'll cut away and come back here, I'm going to actually lay the map out, because one thing that I've noticed with Decision's mounted maps is they lay very flat out of the box. So let's set it up and take a look at it. Okay, so it's not dead flat, but I think it's doing pretty good. And there were 2 sort of situations, or 2 really independent games in volume 1 here. Bagration stopped Warsaw 1944, which I have played, and Sandomir's Offensive, which is a Vistula bridgehead in 1944. And the map we are looking at is the Vistula beachhead 1944 map. As you can see, there's kind of a lot of terrain here. We've got, let me see if I can orient myself. Przemysl is over here. This is going to be in Poland, right? Because it's the Vistula. Tarnow is over here. Sandomir's itself is right here, and some of these hexes will be sort of marked. It's not laying dead flat, but it's laying pretty flat out of the box, which is nice. Now, I will also notice, I didn't notice this until I fondled the display map at the booth. It's got a really nice linen texture. So I'm really happy with that. Now, the map is double-sided, so you're going to see the Bagration stopped side on the opposite side, okay? There's a significantly more open terrain than we find here in sort of central Poland. I think central Poland is a correct approximation there. So we'll leave this set up while we look at the other stuff. So we get the Battles in the East system rules. For those who are thinking, oh my God, I'm sure Tony has produced yet another monster package. And this is not that. It's a really robust package in terms of what you get for the value, but it's a pretty easy game system to deal with. It's a 16-page rule book, all of which is not rules. It is in line with the stuff that Decision is doing right now, meaning it is full color. It is well illustrated. It is well laid out. I am not sure what has changed in the offices over there at Decision Games, but since it's been a few years now, they've really stepped up their game in terms of layout, and the layouts in this are pretty good. This is a pretty easy system. If you look at the sequence of play, you're going to see that there's an initial movement, a combat, and a mechanized movement. So pretty classic SPI basic paradigm there. And Tony feels that he has kind of taken the best of these old games and updated them, and certainly from a physical components and graphics standpoint, it's definitely updated. There are headquarters in this system as well. Like I said, when we played this, it was very early in the playtest process, so I don't necessarily want to make assumptions about how it works now with the released game. But I'm looking forward to busting this out on an actual table. You do get modifiers for attacking with an entire division or corps at once. Division core integrity. That's good. So the rest, we'll look at the counters last. Sequence of play summary on the back, by the way. Air is a factor too, but it's very easy to play. So, player aids. These are on a medium heavyweight satin finish stock. And here we have Battles in the East, Volume 1, turn record track. There's 10 turns and a couple of specific things are marked on the turn record track. That is a single-sided card. Then we get into the scenario rules, and you'll notice 16 pages of system rules. And I want to talk about the player aids first. I'll point that out. You get 2 of the main player aid cards, which has a CRT, which I believe you'll agree if you've played a lot of this general family of games, is fairly straightforward. You have a very nice summary of what is meant by the results and what causes combat shifts. On the back of that, you have supply effects. There is supply in this game. It's relatively straightforward. It does affect potentially movement and combat, and there are overrun attacks here as well. Here is the very straightforward CRT, which will cover all of the different different terrain types that you see in this volume. Now, 16 pages. It's not even 16 pages. It's more like 13 or 14 pages of rules here with fairly small type. And actually, Tony talks about this. Game mechanics are an evolution of Army Group South and Panzer Group Guderian and have incorporated later mechanical ideas such as from Cobra, which is another very well-regarded SPI and later Decision Games classic. Now, instead of a game-specific rulebook, you get 4. Are they the same? Ooh, interesting. Okay, you do get 4, but there's 2 of each. You get 2 Bagration stopped scenario rules cards and 2 Sandemir's offensive scenario rules cards, and they look identical to me. So all of the game-specific rules that you need for Sandemir's offensive, for example, are on, well, actually this side of this card, so 1 page. And the back side is the setup. With Soviets, Axis, and reinforcements down at the bottom. And when we look at the Bagration stopped scenario rules, again, everything you need is on 1 page, and then you get, looks like a somewhat more flexible, quite a bit more flexible Soviet setup, and then an Axis setup. So really minimal scenario or game-specific rules here. And again, I would regard this not as a single game with 2 scenarios, but really as a 2-pack of independent games, each of which is going to have kind of a single main scenario. Now, we do get 2.5 sheets of counters, and they are on the thick brown core stock that we have come to expect and love in the wargaming hobby lately, and that Decision has been working with for some time now. And they are 5/8 inch counters, and the hexes are big enough to accommodate 5/8 inch counters. So over here we have Sandemir's offensive front, so there's a sheet and a half for Sandemir's offensive and some markers. And then there's a sheet for Bagration stopped. There's more Soviet units than German units, but it's the East Front. What do you want? Most of the Soviet units are divisions. Most of the German units are regiments or brigades. We do have headquarters, which are these units up here. and there's going to be an attack. Let's see here. How does this work? Yeah, so there's going to be like a defensive and an offensive posture that each headquarters is going to be in, and that is going to dictate just how much they can do. There are leaders as well. The Germans have Rokossovsky, and the Soviets have Rokossovsky, and the Germans have Model and Gilla. And then in Sandomir's offensive, the Germans have Balk and Breith, and the Soviets have Konev and Katukov. Konev, we should all be familiar with if you're into this thing. And we do have color coding on the counters. So the movement will tell, the coding on the movement will tell you something about how the unit moves. The coding on the combat will tell you something about how the unit fights. And the color of the NATO symbol will tell you what the sort of higher level formation the unit is in, which you will also need to know for headquarters purposes. So nice clean system. I think these are being very well received, and I've now been to my second convention in roughly a month or so, where Decision has sold out of these. So it looks like they're moving very briskly. Production standards here are top notch, and I mean, given the choice of topic, and given my pretty high regard for Tony as a designer, especially considering he's a pretty new designer, I would have bought these. I would have picked these up unseen. But as I said, thank you, Decision Games, for slipping me copies of these. So hopefully you have found this interesting. If you'd like to take a look at this, I will put a link to the product page over on the Decision Games website in the video description. So check that out if this looks interesting to you. Please do thumbs up the video. Please do subscribe to the channel for more wargame and occasional other content. I'd like to give a special shout out to the patrons of Ardwulf's Lair. You can explore becoming a patron using the links in the video description, but none of the stuff that we do here would continue to be possible without the support and encouragement of the patrons of Ardwulf's Lair. So thank you, patrons. I'd like to thank you for watching, and until next time, happy wargaming.